Hello and welcome to this seasonal episode of Unearth Horticulture. Today the topic is pretty clear and that is pumpkins. I'm going to talk to you today about how you can select, carve, and display your pumpkins so that they last for the longest amount of time. Now, I'm not selling pumpkins on the plant bus because you can get them on almost every corner wherever you live. But also, I have been parking the plant bus at Walter's Pumpkin Patch here a couple times this fall. And if you don't know where Walter's is, you definitely need to come out and check it out. It's right off of US Highway 77 between Burns and El Dorado. And they're ranked in like the top 10 pumpkin patches in Kansas. So it's a really cool place to visit. And of course, the plant bus is going to be there again on October 29. And you can bring the family out and have a Halloween-filled Saturday. So definitely come out and see me. But for now, I wanted to talk to you about pumpkins from a horticultural perspective because I think it will really help you out in understanding how to treat them so that you can enjoy them and really ultimately get the most enjoyment for your dollar. First and foremost, it's most important to talk about pumpkin selection. All right. Most of us don't think about pumpkins as a fruit or something like we would be selecting at the produce section at the market or grocery store. But in essence, that's what we're doing when we're selecting pumpkins. So we want to have that same kind of mindset when we're picking them out. So just like we wouldn't want to see gray mold or bruises or gouges or smushed grapes, all of those things is what we're looking for when we're selecting the best quality produce at the grocery store. That is the same mindset that you want to be in when you're selecting pumpkins. So I have this classic pumpkin here, and I'm going to use this as my demonstration pumpkin the whole way through here. So first I want you to notice how smooth it is, how clean, and it has a nice long stem on it. There is always, always, always going to be a bad, ugly side to your pumpkin, and that is because pumpkins grow on vines, which grow on the ground. And so there's always going to be that side that rested on the ground as the pumpkin formed. So that is one area where some of the damage might be concentrated. You might see a lot of dirt or scabbing, and that's normal to see. It's how the pumpkin kind of protects itself. So, but you want to check that area for any gouging or bruising. Don't select a pumpkin that has gouge marks, a broken off stem, or any soft spots or already black or molding spots. That is already going to degrade your pumpkin and start breaking it down faster. So when you select your pumpkin, look for those things, and that'll get you started right off the bat. Then you want to make sure that you don't actually damage your pumpkins in transit from the pumpkin patch or the grocery store to your front porch. So I actually today when I got my pumpkins, I took a little comforter blanket with me. I wrapped them. You can seat belt them in. You might have kids in the back that want to hold them. Those are all really great ways to keep them from getting jostled, bruised, gouged, the stems breaking off. Just make sure that you get your pumpkins home safely. The other thing I want to talk to you about when it comes to pumpkin selection is, of course, varieties. Now, different pumpkins have different genetics, and growers have done a really good job of selecting pumpkins that are going to grow nice and pretty for you and last a while. There are the classic traditional orange pumpkins, but then there's also fairy tale pumpkins, and they're really pretty. They're becoming a classic, and there's one main reason why, and that's because they look pretty without you having to paint or carve them. And the reason I love the fairy tale pumpkins is they look a little funky. You can get really warty ones, and I love warty pumpkins. But especially that when you don't have to actually make a physical wound in the pumpkin by carving it with a knife, that's going to automatically increase your pumpkin's longevity, simply because you're not causing a wound, causing something that can lead to rot. So I encourage you, if you like the aesthetic of these, to go ahead and go with those fairy tale pumpkins. But for the purpose of this video, they are going to be set aside because I'm going to talk to you about carving next. All right, so you made it home. You have a beautiful specimen. It has its stem attached. You've got no bruises, no gouges. Your pumpkin looks beautiful. It's ready to start carving. Well, before we get to the carving process, I wanted to do a little bit of review with you. Plant pathogens, or in other words, the microorganisms that like to break down plant tissues. These are things that attack your fruits, and they also attack houseplants. They also attack your front lawn. They all live in the plant universe to munch on plants. So the same pathogen that attacks your pumpkin can also attack plants. And this brings me to my first point. If you are doing this little trendy thing, or buying pumpkins where you're plopping mums down into it, a croton, or even any kind of succulent garden or succulents, there are a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, if you have plants in your pumpkin, they do not withstand freeze, especially plants like succulents. They do not like temperatures that are below 50 degrees, let alone below 32 degrees. So it's going to be putting some of your plants under stress to be out in the cold alongside your pumpkin, which is not intended to last forever. Whereas maybe you want your plants that are in the pumpkin to last a little bit longer than the pumpkin itself. Now, the second thing to keep in mind where pathogens are concerned is that the pathogens that are causing your pumpkin to mold and rot are the same pathogens that can cause health issues for your plants. So if you are putting houseplants or succulents in your pumpkin, that's fine and dandy. Just expect to have a few, keep your eye out for health issues with those plants down the road. And maybe don't expect those houseplants to last you past the life of the pumpkin. Food for thought. Okay, so along the lines of plant pathogens, a way to keep your pumpkin that you're about to carve healthier longer, whenever you make a wound in a fruit or a plant with a cutting tool, like if you're pruning, or if there's some physical damage caused, that wound is a susceptible point for pathogens to start munching and breaking down the pumpkin. So since pumpkins are grown out in a field, they grow in dirt, and a lot of pathogens are found in the dirt or on your pets or on your hands or on your kids. So pathogens are everywhere, and to minimize them attacking your pumpkin for as long as possible, it's a great and handy thing to use little Clorox wipes, Lysol wipes, on the outside of your pumpkin to get them clean before you start carving, before you start making any of those wounds. So the first step when you're carving your pumpkin is to clean your pumpkin by wiping it down. So I'm going to do that next. Let's see how dirty this pumpkin really is. All right. Okay. I'm gonna let this glistening pumpkin dry off a little bit, but all right, first off, I want you to look at this. Look how much dirt was on the pumpkin, and rightly so. I bet you don't know how much dirt you actually consume off your fruit, especially if you don't wash your fruit. So let this be a lesson to you. Wash your fruit. But pumpkins aren't something that are washed, especially if you buy them from the pumpkin patch. So it's only natural that they're going to have dirt on the outside. So it's always a good little handy trick to keep them living longer. Keep their porch life a little bit longer by just simply wiping them down with a disinfectant wipe. All right. So that's done. Okay, so there are a couple tools that you're going to want to gather when you're carving your pumpkin. All right. First of all, I have a vinyl tablecloth on here so that it's something easy to wipe down, because if you know anything, pumpkin carving is a mess. They have all kinds of guts in there. So I have this little place here. I'm actually, you know what? I'm gonna leave this out of there, and then I'm gonna put all the guts in the wash basin here. I also keep Band-Aids handy because you probably don't know this about me, but anyone who knows me personally is that I cut myself all the time. I cannot peel a potato, slice a watermelon without doing some sort of damage to myself with a knife. So when I'm carving pumpkins, I make sure and get the Band-Aids nearby. You might want that if you're working with kids. There's all kinds of pumpkin carving sets available for really cheap, where they got the scoop with the serrated edge to help you really scoop out the pulp in the pumpkin. And then all these blades, and they're a lot safer for kids. They're not as sharp as some others. And you don't need something super sharp for a pumpkin. All right, the last thing that's kind of a funky thing on my list is petroleum jelly. Or Vaseline is a name brand that you can use. So it's actually a little trick. You can use petroleum jelly on the cut edges of your pumpkin to kind of seal those wounds up and protect them from rotting a little bit longer. So you can use petroleum jelly. You can also use vegetable oil. Those are all really great ways to keep your pumpkin longer. Now, some people actually submerge their whole pumpkin in like vinegar water or bleach. I really don't suggest that, because you're just adding moisture to your pumpkin. And moisture is an aggravant for plant pathogens. Little did you know. So I suggest simply using something kind of like, use it as a sealant to keep pathogens out. That's the goal, keep pathogens out. So we've already sanitized our pumpkin. What's left but to carve? So I'm gonna get to work here, and we'll see if I get a time lapse done of this. Oh, I should mention one more thing. Some people like to really trace the faces with a Sharpie on the front, and that's great. I like to freestyle, so if this ends up really janky, you know what? It's a jack-o'-lantern. I hope it's janky. All right. Now comes the time to get this stem unhooked. A little twist is necessary. Woo! That came out of there. Ooh, and it smells lovely. Smells like a pumpkin, my friends. Already making a mess. All right, let's take a look inside this bad boy. Look at all that pulp in there. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and save all these seeds because I'm gonna roast them, and I'm gonna share my recipe with you, because roasted pumpkin seeds are really great. They're really healthy, but maybe not after you add butter and salt, but they're so good. They're so good. They add really good fiber. So I'm gonna hold on to those and share that with you. One thing I forgot to mention is your cutting tools. If you've used them in years past, it's really important that you get them clean in between use, because sometimes microbes like to build up on your cutting tools. So clean them, and then also I suggest using a disinfectant wipe on them, or even flaming them if you're being super fancy, just to really kill any microbes that might be on your cutting tools when you're working with pumpkin carving. All right, I'm gonna cut off all these goods. There you go. Now we got our hat here, and we will petroleum jelly this guy right all at the end because, you know, that's the way. I am thinking I'm gonna try to keep, now I'm gonna just divide all the seeds at the end. That's the one bad part about actually saving the seeds, is it's a lot of work. So now I'm gonna take my handy dandy little scoop, and I'm gonna scoop away. Try to get this out. It's a very thick walled pumpkin, so we'll see how many innards I actually get out. All right, so you can see it's all hollowed out, and got them cleaned up, and now I'm gonna do the face before I get to the petroleum jelly. Now it's good to find a flat side, right? And I'm not gonna do it on the side that was on the ground, because, you know, more risk of pathogen. So I'm gonna freestyle this sucker. This is my shocked jack-o'-lantern face. I really get tired of doing the teeth, so I did the face. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean him up again. All right, I am so proud of the fact that I got through this without cutting myself. Yay! So the next step is going to be to use the petroleum jelly to seal off the different wounds that we just made on this pumpkin to help it stay fresh longer. I'm going to start with the just a thin layer is necessary. Like, you don't have to goop it on there. And I'm just using my fingers because, I mean, what else would you use? But I don't know. Use what you want. Just doing my thin layer. This is kind of funny feeling. And I'm not cutting the inside of the pumpkin. I'm just cutting the doing it on the parts that are cut, just to keep those from molding, because that's what we see really. We don't really care as much if it starts molding on the inside first. That means the petroleum is doing its job. Now, big reveal. I'm gonna go wash my hands. So here you have it. This is my jack-o'-lantern for Halloween. He has been all petroleum jellied up, and it is probably the highest quality jack-o'-lantern that I have yet produced to this point. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and you found it useful for your jack-o'-lantern carving, your pumpkin selection this year. If you have any questions, as always, make sure you drop them in the comments below. And just to do a brief review, first and foremost, it's always important to select your pumpkins like you would be selecting fruit at the market. It's really important to think about your pumpkins as what they are. They are fruit. They are going to last you longer if you start with a better specimen. Second, don't forget about those pesky, sneaky plant pathogens. You don't want them to get your pumpkin sooner than they have to. So disinfect the outside of the pumpkin. Get all that dirt off of there that could be bearing all those pathogens. Disinfect your tools, and think about when you are putting plants in your pumpkins. If you are putting plants in your pumpkins, just keep in mind that those plants might not last you as long because the same pathogens that are going to deconstruct your pumpkin are also going to want to munch on your plants. And then last, when you're displaying your pumpkins, petroleum jelly helps to keep mold from getting into those wounds. And if you're going to display them, it's always going to make them last longer to display them inside your house. But if you just don't like that smell, of course, share your pumpkins, your jack-o'-lanterns with the world, and put them on your front porch. Just understand that they're going to degrade a little bit more quickly when they're outside. So that's all I got for you today. So until next time, you've been watching Unearth Horticulture.